and also with Mathieu and Ménonville, who has a brand called Editions Homer, and Déborah Neuberg, who has a brand called Bonne Facture. I'd like to start off with a question for you, Paul. It's true that over the last 5 to 10 years, we have witnessed this new wave of French designers come on the men's market. What do you feel is a catalyst to this? Why do you feel that it's happened recently?
Well, I think first of all, Paris has always been a platform where people present, where houses are based, where young talent, creative people can develop their ideas, learn, get experience, because there's a lot of design studios, so it's a place that attracts creative people. And then I think menswear has been undergoing a lot of changes recently, in the sense that it has liberated, has shaken off a lot of stigmas about how to dress. It's a lot more free. So I think it's a moment where you can express much more in menswear than before, and I think everybody feels that opportunity and sees it as a chance, and also sees it as an opportunity to create something. So obviously I'm not the only one who saw that chance and who saw that possibility. I think that's what's been going on. I think menswear, as opposed to women's wear, over the last 5 years has accelerated a lot more in terms of possibilities creatively, potentially. Also finding new consumers that maybe before were much harder to reach.
I mean, if we talk about those new consumers, maybe we could talk about also how the influence of the digital revolution has changed things. Maybe Deborah could come to you on that. Has the digital revolution really aided you in your business?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Being on Instagram, being able to reach out to so many new people has really helped us. And being able to be on platforms, on digital platforms, like Matches, as a matter of fact, gives us greater visibility, and can get consumers that we couldn't know about us to get to know us better.
Okay, great. And in terms of how men maybe consume today, maybe it's easier to consume with all this, the influences of being online fashion, and we're here today with Matches fashion especially, and has that had a big influence, the fact that men can consume online? Do you think, Mathieu, what do you think to that?
Yes, I think it does have a very big influence. I think we've moved from a consumption based on main figures of big icons to something much more democratic, where everyone has become an icon of his own, to the social media and everything. Especially menswear, I feel we tend to get inspired by people around us, by our friends, and the social media have contributed to that, because people put themselves on stage through Instagram a lot, and they even tag the brand names of what they wear. So it's a different way to consume, and it's a different way for brands to communicate.
Do you think men today are more, they have more knowledge about menswear than they did before, about the brands that exist, about what they want to buy, about how to wear clothes? Paul?
Yeah, I think they do. I think on all kinds of levels, men are much more. I mean, when I started to work at Vuitton, men didn't really carry bags, and now the bag, the tote, the men's bag, or however you want to call it, is just completely normal. There's many examples, but it's the same for cosmetics, it's the same for clothes. It's not such a big deal anymore, thank God. And I think there's a big diversity. And again, I agree with what Mathieu said. It's really also because the social media allows people to look at what the actors do, what the musicians do. They express themselves freely on Instagram with no holding back, no fear. From dressing very extreme to very simple, and I think that sets an example, and it gives, on a very simple level, also consumers the courage to do the same and to say, okay, he was out there in that, I don't know, studded shirts. I'm going to wear the same. And I think that's how it works. And those examples today are there, and it's much faster than how it used to be 50 years ago, because it'll take 5 years for a book to come out on free backstage shots of Anne Delon during a film. And now it's 5 minutes.
So, Deborah, the introduction or the sites that now you can sell your clothes on, that's obviously improved your revenue streams, and it's enabled you to reach a more global audience. Would that be true?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Is that in terms of, I suppose in some respects, the French market is important to you?
Oh, yes. Actually, as we discussed, the French market for us is quite small. And even though the Bonne Facture is a French brand, most of our clients are abroad. And people who tend to be interested in our philosophy are more abroad than in France. It's a very small market for us in France. So early adopters from the Bonne Facture are more likely to be in Japan or Korea or San Francisco, New York, rather than France. And it's true that this kind of digital revolution enables us to reach out to them rather than what we would have had if we'd been only in Paris and just had a shop or something. It might have been more difficult for us.
And also, I know very much with your own brand, Bonne Facture, you're very keen on sourcing the best tissues, and you go to the best ateliers. And that's something also I've talked to you about, Paul, as well, this important process. Do you think this, we talked about the idea of made in France, how important do you feel that is to consumers today?
What I feel is that, so there's a political made in France that exists for French consumers. That's kind of like a, political stance to try to, help French companies to sell more. But actually, it turns out that what people say they want or say they want more made in France is not necessarily true in the, shopping patterns. So the way I see it in my brand is just to go to specialist atelier and make this culture of craftsmanship live on. And I'm more interested in the made by than in the made in, because I think made in can be a lot of very different realities. And I think that philosophy of craftsmanship and culture of craftsmanship can be interesting for a lot of consumers and not only French consumers.
So that's very important for the French touch today with yourself also, Mathieu?
Yeah, I think quality does matter, and craftsmanship matters a lot, especially in menswear, because we like to, I personally like to use the clothes a lot, and only after a little while I adopt really what I bought. And if at this time the good is made to be thrown in the garbage, then it doesn't make sense. Fabrics don't cheat. The way garments are made don't cheat. Especially our take on fashion is rather classic, with details and creativity in trims and details. So of course the manufacturer plays a very central role into that process. That makes it a very big difference.
And if we talk about the influence of, well, we've talked about in the past people like Jean-Paul Belmondo and Alain Delon and the influences of Yves Saint Laurent. If we're looking today for people who signify the modern French man, I know you've all got some different ideas on this, but maybe I could start with you, Paul.
Well, I think there's definitely a new generation of musicians, artists, sculptors, actors that are interesting. People like Louis Garrel, Pierre Berrier, Pianini, that are all very much sort of, they have a certain French nonchalance. They all dress simple, but they have something relaxed, scruffy, that I think is typical French, that I think continues that sort of tradition, which I think is typically French, seeing it as an outsider because I'm not French. So maybe the French people don't agree with me on that.
I do personally.
Yeah, and I think that there is many examples. Yes.
And Mathieu, I know that you were talking about Instagram and how men post pictures, well, how they like to shoot what they're wearing, photograph what they're wearing on Instagram, and actually credit the clothes, is it?
Right. I think, as I said before, the person who inspires the others is just your neighbor, is just your friend. And that is done through direct relationship. I like your jacket, what it is, or through Instagram, because people talk a lot and tag a lot on. They credit the brand they wear on Instagram, and so everybody becomes a small influencer on his own, and that's why I think markets now should not be really understood geographically speaking, but much more in terms of community, because this is the way they are being constructed, and they're much more international, but that doesn't mean they address to everyone. It's still different communities that are bound together for the taste, for liking an actor or liking a type of music or having a certain lifestyle.
Déborah, would you agree with those things? Have you got anything to...
No, I definitely agree with everything Paul and Mathieu had said. I think that scruffy word is an interesting word to describe French style. The fact, to be, or as Mathieu said, to wear something a lot, and that's something I'm really interested in. Not necessarily in having icons, but just in the way French people tend to wear and use their garments, not as something that is you can throw away after once, but something that really wears into your character and wears into your wardrobe. And I'm really interested in that, and even having stuff that's not necessarily well ironed because you've been wearing it for a long time, or stuff that it's a little scruffy or that has a hole because you've been wearing it for 15 years or your father gave it to you, or that kind of stuff. I think is very interesting and kind of part of the French philosophy of wearing clothes, and especially for men's.
And also I know that you've taken the photos you've taken of older people wearing clothes, you find them very inspiring.
Yes, that's something I do personally that really feeds into my work. I haven't been posting about this openly on the Bonne Facture, but it's definitely, I look at old people in the street all the time, in the subway. I just like, there's something.
They're so much more inspiring than the young generation.
Sometimes.
Sorry.
Yes, and I
because
think
they have personality, and they have a small closet. They have to do it with what they have. It's like a sort of 80 years ago state of mind, and I think that's what we're all going back to. Less choice, but really, with the choice you have, making a statement. And those old people, and that's what I said, maybe when you grow up in France and Paris you don't realize it, but I see people and they have this Jacques Fat coat with a plastic bag from Tati and a pair of pantoufles, and the way they mix colors and things, there's a chic to it. They're more sensible to subtle contrast in fabrics and colors, which is, all this is not maybe as revolutionary as at the time the punks in London, but it's definitely part of the French culture and Paris, and it's very inspiring. And I see young people looking at them everywhere, because, so I really feel the 70 plus and 80 plus is the generation.
And we're less fed up because we don't see them as much on Instagram.
So you have to post them.
No, but would you then, if you then had to talk about the modern French look today, as what would you say the modern, what would you say the modern French look is today?
For me, the modern French look is a nonchalant elegance, something that is a combination of sophistication and simplicity, and a sense of sort of scruffiness. For me, a bit, a slightly intellectual touch. It's like a young François Truffaut in a way. How, if I have to say it in one word, and that French look still exists, and for me, that's the French look of today still.
Mathieu, would you say a lot of the French touch is in the attitude, how men own their clothes and wear them?
Yes, I would definitely agree with you. I think I think today we want things pretty simple, but well chosen, and so it lies more in the way you wear things than in what you wear itself. Touch of nonchalance, definitely. A little bit of arrogance sometimes also, we have to admit.
Comes naturally for the French.
What do you think, from a woman's view?
First of all, I think more women should be wearing men's clothes, for sure, and that's also something that's pretty French. And yes, it's true that there's this nonchalance and everything, but I just feel like the modern French look is something more. I mean, as I was telling you, there are so many different realities in France, and there are the workers and the people in Paris and the people in Provence, and there are the old people and young people and streetwear. There's so many different trends going on, or ways to be wearing clothes. And I feel that we have this specific sensitiveness to that French, scruffy, elegant, simple but sophisticated style. But as for the modern French look, I think there are so many different things going on.
And the French look is very popular abroad. Whenever we talk about French brands, they sell very well abroad. Yeah.
It's become a marketing tool.
No, I was just thinking, in England, we always think of Agnes B, and there are many, Joseph, there are many brands which do very well. Amy's doing very well. Everybody's selling over in not just England, but the European markets very well.
No, but I think it's about a story. It's about telling a story. People are tired of just cold products, and I think setting it in the context of France, culturally, historically, with everything around it, that what France and the history of France, the film, the cinema, the literary world, all that creates an atmosphere, and I think that's a global marketing issue that France is about. I think it's not only fashion, it's also food, it's a lot of different things, and fashion is rooted in that, and I think by being branded and being here rooted in Paris, I think that comes with it, and I think that's an appreciation that is worldwide for many aspects of design from France, and I think fashion is part of that greatly.
Well, look, thank you all very much, and thank you to
Thank you.
Mathieu's Fashion Live. Thank you.
Thank you.